Good afternoon, to all of you, and welcome to this new coaching conversation. It's been a while. It's the first one in 2021, and we're opening this coaching summit with a person that I'd like to introduce to you, Louise Varagnolo, who's going to talk to us about linguistic insecurity. I hope I'm saying it well, Louise. Louise is a former executive in the public service, and she's going to tell us about her passion for this topic, but also how she came to get interested in this subject. Alors, Louise, please tell us a little bit more about you and what brought you to this subject matter.
Yes, thank you, Pascale, for the invitation. So a bit of linguistic biopsy. I was born in Montreal. My mother is French-Canadian, was born in Montreal. My father is Italian from Venice. So at home, we would speak French, Italian mainly when we would go and see the family. And I learned English at school. So English is my third language. So I always had an interest in language acquisition and cultural identity, mainly because of my personal life. I did a lot of anthropological study, observing my father learning French. His attitude regarding making mistakes, taking often risks. I saw how resilient he was, and he was a great model for me. He would make mistakes until he died, but that was part of the journey, and it was moving even sometimes. So I joined the public service 25 years ago, leading a high-profile project that was linked to the creation of Nunavut territory. I never worked in English before, so I was quite nervous and intimidated. Especially, I had to write a lot of briefing notes. So I had a lot of feedback. A lot were negative comments on the quality of my language. But with the leadership and support from my director and my own ability to bounce back, I tamed my own linguistic insecurity, and I improved quite a lot my language proficiency. So a few years ago, I was named by my deputy minister the OL champion for the organization. And in my university years, I did a master's in instructional design, and I studied psychology, neurolinguistics. So I felt very honored to have this role, and I felt well equipped to influence the conversation in the public service regarding official languages. So I influenced the topic of La Journée de la Dualité Linguistique a few years ago, asking if people were open to start talking about linguistic insecurity. At the time, I would call it linguistic anxiety. And people were open to take that route. So we had experts from Ottawa University in the field, and we had some testimonies of high-level leaders, and it started to have a lot of interest. People called me, and I went in different departments to give presentations on the topic. As well, in 2019, the Office of the Commissioner of Official Languages, they did a big survey on the use of official languages in the public service. They had 11,000 responses, so they were very excited about the traction of that survey. So that provided a lot of data regarding the discomfort and insecurity of English speakers and French speakers regarding the speaking of their first or second language in the workplace. I retired in 2019 and I was approached by the Official Languages Center of Excellence at the Treasury Board as a strategic advisor on the topic. And the first thing we did, we created an interdepartmental working group to start reflecting on the phenomenon. And it was the beginning of this great adventure.
Wow, what a path to get you there and in working on such an important topic and subject. And could you tell us a little bit more about it? What's the impact of this issue or the importance of this issue, and why is it important to address?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you think that the people who frequently experience a feeling of inferiority or that often have a fear of making mistakes, of disturbing, of being discriminated against, of being maybe perceived as less intelligent, all this reality has an important impact on the use of both official languages. So the reason why we had to look at it is because it could lead to language abandonment. Like individuals, in order to avoid the feeling of insecurity, they just may decide to stop using the language that causes the discomfort. And this is not what the public service is about. So it is one of the important causes that limit the effective use of both languages in our institutions that are intended to be diverse and linguistically inclusive. So there was a need to reflect on the impact. And after the survey, the Office of the Commissioner, they developed a great infographic and a great concept regarding organizational context in the public service regarding official languages. So they had the continuum at the extreme. It's called a vicious cycle that brings you to the other extreme, that is a virtuous cycle. So I will explain a bit how they did their structure. So a vicious cycle is created when the organizational context does not promote equal use of both official languages due to different reasons. Could be senior management low modeling, low expectations, could be absence of values related to linguistic duality. There are different reasons. But the impact is that when you live in a vicious cycle organization, well, people lose their confidence to use the language, and they lose their skills as well. So if we go to, on the other hand, an environment to reinforce language security in the workplace, we refer to a virtuous cycle where the culture encourages the use of both languages, supported by various components. Could be leaders who take a lot of risk, could be an obvious openness to linguistic duality. And thus the impact is people feel more confident, and then they maintain and develop their skills in a much more positive fashion.
Thank you. So this brings me to the next question, which is, how do you tie coaching, or what are the tools to make this happen, or to promote, I would say, the virtuous cycle? And what's the role of coaching in this?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I created this working group, I'm a young certified coach, so I was all fresh with the potential of coaching to transform individual path and ways of looking at themselves. So, as I said at the beginning, we created this interdepartmental working group where the mandate was to study the phenomenon and propose certain solutions, a sort of a lab where we're working on a vaccine to cure the linguistic insecurity virus. And because I had a coaching mindset, well, we have different products. We are consolidating them. And two of the products, we decided to have them be supported by a coaching posture. So why? Well, in the research, we know, or we have discovered, that there are different causes for linguistic insecurity. It could be your personality. If you are shy, introverted, perfectionist, competitive, well, you have a big chance to have more insecurity in that field. The ego. There's a lot of research on the children who have what we call dynamic egos, meaning that they don't mind what the environment thinks of them. They are like ducks, right? The criticism is not doesn't stop them from taking risk. Adults, on the other hand, are very aware of their image, of how to look vulnerable. So, and we call this ego langagier. Alors, ego dynamique et ego langagier. And after, there's the continuous fixed and growth mindset. Fixed mindset are people who think that they always have to prove themselves, instead of, on the continuum, if you have a growth mindset, a deep one, you just think that you have to improve yourself. So these two realities obviously have an impact on your relationship with taking risk in a second language, for example. And after, there's the social environment, like we said, the vicious and virtuous cycle, and individual limiting beliefs of various kinds. Some people can think that they're not intelligent enough, or they don't have talent enough. So there are all sorts of limiting beliefs. So because of that, when we understood a bit better the environmental reality that impacts linguistic insecurity and the individual one, well, we felt that the coaching approach could offer people opportunity to be supported without judgment. We know that coaching, that's a very important factor, without judgment in their communication, by identifying their issues and taking a step back. So that people can learn from their personal dynamics, what we call their current way of being, and to apply new strategies, develop new attitudes, new way of being. So with questions and offering a platform to explore new perspectives, we think that, and we did a test and the results were good, that it will help people to act with more confidence, to take more risks, to accept to fall and be vulnerable, to see vulnerability as a strength and not a weakness, very important factor, and be authentic and courageous. So, and we feel that if we create this discovery and transformation in individuals, it will have a strong impact in organizations to bring winning conditions to have an inclusive public service linguistically.
Thank you so much, Louise. And this is fascinating, and I'm sure we can apply the same approach in a similar way, at least, to other areas where there is insecurity or similar challenges. So before we close, I'd like to hear you on to help our listeners, if anybody is interested in this approach, using it in their daily work or implementing it. What do you recommend? Do you have 2-3 easy steps or actions or lines of thoughts that you could recommend us to get us started?
Yeah, and you make a very good point, saying that this approach that we decided to develop for the linguistic insecurity phenomenon could certainly and almost obviously be used for any type of anxiety factors or insecurity, because it is what it is. So based on this, Pascale, I will discuss our coaching approach that has been influenced by certain components. And after, I will use some questions and under 3 pillars of linguistic resilience that could be used for other purpose. Okay, so resilience, obviously, it's overused as a concept, but it is what it is. It is to develop, and we know the current situation where we have, at the best of our knowledge, to develop our ability to bounce back, or from failure or from adversity. The courageous expression and vulnerability, so seeing that taking risks is not a weakness but a strength, and insisting to be true to one's values. The growth mindset, we talked about it, seeing mistakes as part of the learning process. So let's go with one pillar, self-awareness. So the question could be, what steps do you take to calm your mind when you are stressed? So increasingly, neuroscience research is emphasizing the importance of taking note or paying good attention to our inner thoughts, emotions, physiological reactions, and their impact it has on our well-being. So in terms of advice, to try to reduce that sabotage hamster, right? These sabotage thoughts, this inner voice that tells you that you should not say a few words in French or in English because you will lose face, you will make mistakes. The research talks a lot about developing your mindfulness, meditation, and when you are in the reality, only doing 3 deep breathing will suffice to bring you back to the reality and stop the hamster that is not real. These are thoughts, right? So tell yourself that your life is not in danger and a grammar mistake is not life-threatening. So trying to ridicule a bit this fear that is taking place in your mind. Vulnerability. So question, how willing are you to be vulnerable when taking risks? So there's a big importance for you to increase your understanding that mistakes are part of learning, that overcoming fear is part of courage and acceptance of falling, and that you have the choice of being yourself, be authentic and true to your values. So in terms of advice, I would suggest that you give yourself some daily practices when you can show vulnerability by taking risks, noting, writing down how you feel, and increase the pace. So one day at the management table, you speak 3 times, 4 minutes. The next time, 10 minutes, you speak 4 times. The next time you give a presentation in your second language. So you will see that people around you maybe will want to imitate your courage and your behavior, and you will see the beneficial effects it could have. And important, you have to remember that you are not alone on this journey. There are a lot of people who are there with you. And the last one, optimism. Question, how will you bring your linguistic resilience to the next challenge? So developing your resilience means giving yourself the permission to gain confidence, to be proud of yourself, to grow linguistically, and maintain your well-being. So in terms of advice, try to exorcise your insecurity by noticing the positive in taking risks. So you're being proud of that, looking at your success. So notice the positive, note how it feels. How does it feel to be proud instead of being fearful? Focus on what you can control, and celebrate your willingness to communicate and your successes with a hot bath, black chocolate, or a great glass of champagne.
Let's celebrate. Thank you so much, Louise. I think it cannot be more timely, especially at a time where we're talking a lot about well-being and building trust and success at work, but in an environment where everyone is collaborating on an online fashion. So this topic is very timely, and the approach can be applied to all kinds of challenges, and of course this one to start with. So thank you so much. Merci, grazie, and we'll talk at another time on another coaching conversation, hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pascale. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.